Hello and welcome to my presentation on marine zoning in the Great Barrier Reef. Today's presentation is going to cover first some background information about the habitat and the species that live there. It's then going to move on to the current problems that are being faced in the Great Barrier Reef and why conservation is so important for the modern day Great Barrier Reef. I will then go on to talk about my specific conservation method, which is marine zoning, and how this technique is applied within the Great Barrier Reef. We'll then go on to talk about the laws and legislation behind this chosen technique and why these are needed. We'll then finally go on to talk about how this method could be improved, or how marine zoning could be improved overall, not just in the Great Barrier Reef, but just as a general conservation method. First, we're going to talk about just some general information behind the Great Barrier Reef. As you can see on the map on the screen, it's located along the northeast coast of Australia and is currently considered one of the 7 wonders of the world. This spectacular natural coral formation, spans over 348,000 kilometres and contains over 400 different types of coral and 1,500 types of fish. So it's a very diverse habitat. And for this reason, scientists are actively always looking in this area in terms of conservation methods. However, in the last 100 years, the Great Barrier Reef has massively suffered, which is why coming on to the next slide, need to talk about the current problem and why conservation is so important in this area. So, the current problem within the Great Barrier Reef is that over the last 100 years, through industrialization and through mechanizing and fossil fuels becoming a more active part of everyday life, global temperatures have increased due to the greenhouse effect. As you can see, mean global temperatures have increased by an average of 0.14 Fahrenheit, 0.08 Celsius per decade since 1880. Along with this, the temperature of the upper few meters of the oceans also increased by 0.13 degrees Celsius. And this has caused problems for the coral formations, so as you can see on the right, through a process called bleaching, which is an over-acidification of the water due to the temperature changes. This is not the only problem though. There's also over-tourism of the area, and overfishing. These both cause problems to not only the coral but also to the fish and the marine life living there, and disrupts ecosystems. So this is kind of the reason why conservation methods are so important to implement in this area, because of these current problems. So as you were shown in the slide before, the Great Barrier Reef is under real threat from multiple different things. So to counter this problem, conservation efforts have been put in place to prevent this, and one of these conservation methods, what this presentation is about and what I've researched into, is marine zoning. So what is marine zoning? Marine zoning is areas that protect a range of nationally important rare or threatened habitats and species using zones. So these zones are implemented in areas that are under high threat from either the effects of climate change or from humans. They could also be areas that have changed in ecosystems, so any areas where habitats are diminishing or that people want to save those areas. So each zone is given a specific purpose, whether that's conservation or for fishing, and what this does is, by governments giving these areas specific zones, it allows for the habitat to regenerate, because there's no overuse of a specific area. If all the use for the Great Barrier Reef, for the scientists, for the public, is all spread out and allocated into these different zones, the aim is to try and reduce the amount of events occurring in one specific place. This also allows for conservationists to protect any areas that may be severely under threat, and divert the use of the habitat to areas which are either less under threat or more suited for the purpose of humans. So moving on to marine zones in the Great Barrier Reef. So for more than 40 years, marine zoning has played a key role within the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park. As you can see on the map by Day et al. On the right, this is kind of an example of what the marine zoning actually looks like. As you can see, each colour scheme is a different zone, and they all have different kind of purposes. So you have a conservation park, general use, habitat protection. So this is the kind of general idea that this long stretch along this coastline has been split up into different areas to stop overuse of a specific area. So this is just kind of some more information on how marine zoning actually works in the Great Barrier Reef. So as you can see on the graph, taken from Day et al. Again, you have your zone colour and your zone name, and then on the right is the legal objectives for the zone. So objectives will be set out by the government for the specific zone, whether that's conservation or whether it's general use, in order to completely spread out the use of the Great Barrier Reef. And this kind of allows for objectives from the government for the conservation efforts to be more easily met. However, in order for these to be met, conservation companies that are setting up these zones need to meet laws and legislations in order for them to be able to have permission to use to set up these zones. So, as seen, taken from Day et al. Again, the GBRMP, which is the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park Act, outlines a systematic process required to develop a zoning plan, including mandatory requirements for seeking and considering public representations during specific phases of planning. This act allows for the addition and changes of zonal planning along the Great Barrier Reef, and all companies that want to implement these zones have to meet this act, as it kind of allows for all conservation ideologies to be aligned and to make sure that no one's abusing or creating zones that they can abuse. Along with this, you need training. So these conservationists need training in order to properly use these zones. Most people, they require degrees, which vary from marine biology to actual conservation. And each zone will have specialists for that specific function of the area. So, for example, if the area is looking at just a general conservation area, you're going to have scientists. Obviously, in the public use sector, you're going to have kind of diving teams and tourism. So there's a wide variety of training that's needed to be able to use these zones and to be able to kind of operate them effectively. So I'd like to kind of finish off talking about marine zoning by how I think I could improve this method. So one way in which I think I could improve it would be to further implement more specific zones and refine the uses of the current zones as well. This way the entire Great Barrier Reef can be managed more efficiently and the damage control will be a lot easier. Another way in which I think it could be improved is by making more zones within the Great Barrier Reef a complete no-go zone, as we can see the current problem and the rates at which climate change is increasing, and it's only going to get worse. So I think more areas within that coastline, along where the Great Barrier Reef is situated, should become complete no-use zones by anyone to just allow the habitat to kind of regenerate and give it a chance. Otherwise, if we keep abusing it and using it for kind of human use and even for scientific research, it just completely destroys the habitat and the ecosystems within it. So yeah. So that is the end of my presentation. Here are the references I used to create this presentation. I hope you all enjoyed, and thank you very much.